So I was walking around my house in my favorite player's jersey, as I do, and I said to myself, F it, let's do another preview, because there are only 8 teams left in the World Cup. 8! After years of qualifying and meaningless friendlies in the World Cup draw and who made the final 23-man squads and the group stages and the round of 16, we have 4 big quarterfinal matchups left to break down, and we're gonna start with Uruguay, because some people are tired of me saying, Uruguay! And I'm not sure why, because it's awesome. Anyway, they're taking on France, which is an unbelievable matchup because both teams seem to be hitting peak form at just the right time, or shall I say they were, because Uruguay is going to be without one of their 2-star strikers, Edinson Cavani, due to injury, which is a shame because he scored 2 fantastic goals to knock out Portugal in the round of 16, and I think we were all excited to see how he would build off of that performance. Just like we're all eager to see how Kylian Mbappe builds off of his 2-goal superstar-confirmed performance against Argentina, especially because Uruguay's defense is the opposite of Argentina's, meaning it's good, while Argentina's is bad. And actually, to say it's just good is an understatement. It's really, really good and borderline f***ing awesome. Uruguay have played 7 games in 2018, 3 friendlies and 3 group stage games, and 1 knockout round game, and they've only given up 1 goal in those 7, and it was to Pepe of all people on a set piece. So they definitely have things on lockdown defensively. And with Cavani now out, their defense is going to be heavily relied upon because it's going to make their offense even more one-dimensional as they hope Luis Suarez can work some of his toothy magic. And okay, all right, that isn't entirely fair because they are awesome on set pieces too. So they're 2-dimensional, but without Cavani, they're less dynamic and more predictable. So it'll be interesting to see if Uruguay's manager, Oscar Tabarez, elects to go with 1 striker and add an extra midfielder, or does he go with 2 strikers and hope that Christian Stuani or Maxi Lopez can somehow replicate what Cavani brings to the table? Decisions. As for France, I think their biggest loss is Blaise Matuidi due to yellow card accumulation because he was doing so much of the thankless work alongside N'Golo Kanté, which really freed up Paul Pogba to be the man in midfield against Argentina, which he most definitely was. So now with Matuidi out and Ousmane Dembele most likely coming in to replace him, Pogba won't have as much freedom going forward, and we've seen countless times how that negatively impacts him when he plays for Manchester United and he's limited going forward as well. So, with all that said, I don't think Uruguay is going to attack in large numbers. Maybe just try and counter with 3 or 4 guys and hope for something special, or hurt France on set pieces. So Pogba might not have to be as defensively disciplined, so this will be something to watch out for. As will be the performance of Antoine Griezmann, because the guy is due for a big breakout game, something that he hasn't had yet in this tournament. And for whatever reason, I think this is going to be the game where he does it, because I feel like more Uruguayan eyes are going to be focused on Mbappe. So I think Griezmann pops up with a goal and an assist, and France wins 2-1. And up next, it's Brazil versus Belgium, which is the number 2 ranked team in the world based on the last update of the FIFA rankings, versus the number 3 ranked team in the world. So we could argue this matchup could end up being better than the World Cup final itself, which means I cannot wait to watch, mainly because Brazil continue to get better and better as this tournament has progressed, while Belgium are coming off an amazing comeback against Japan, so they're going to be flying as well. But I do have some concerns. For Brazil, it's the absence of Casemiro, who is out due to yellow card accumulation, because he does such a good job of quietly being an asshole to play against, and he does have a knack of supporting the play going forward when needed. You remember when he scored that goal against Juventus in the Champions League final? What was that, 2 seasons ago? And of course, for being a good pivot in midfield to help the team transition from the defense to the attack. And this isn't to say that his replacement, Manchester City's Fernandinho, is that much of a drop-off in quality, if any, but there is something about Casemiro's game that I really appreciate. Plus, the guy's a proven winner. Also, I think Brazilian manager Tite needs to consider dropping Gabriel Jesus and giving Roberto Firmino a shot at starting instead, because it feels like Jesus is pressing a bit, maybe trying to do too much. And so, by letting Firmino bang with the big Belgian center backs for the first 60 minutes of the game, and then having Jesus come on with 30 minutes to go when those big Belgian center backs are tired, could be the way to go and a good spot for him in this particular game. And speaking of the Belgian defense, I think it's Belgium's weakest link, which Japan properly exposed. And newsflash for everybody, Brazil is much better than Japan, so it could be a problem. Though I don't expect Belgian manager Roberto Martinez to change up his 3-4-2-1 formation, which can morph into a 4 or 5 in the back, depending on the position of the ball. And if, and this is important, if they're dropped off, because if they're not and they're pushing numbers forward, Brazil could punish them on the counter. I mean, what would you do if you were the Belgian manager? Do you drop Dries Mertens and Yannick Carrasco and start Marwan Fellaini and Nasser Chadli right from kickoff? Or do you hold them off as your improbable super subs again? I don't know. Also times 2, and I say this with all due respect to Japan, but Brazil's defense and goalkeeper have been pretty superb so far in this tournament. And now with Marcelo coming back into the team, it makes them even more dynamic as a whole. So honestly, I think Brazil is going to do the job here. I feel like they're just better from front to back and have less weaknesses as a group than Belgium does. Unless, that is, Kevin De Bruyne decides to have his big breakout game of the tournament, which he hasn't had yet, just like Antoine Griezmann. However, Fernandinho sees him regularly at training with City, so there will be some familiarity there. And I think Romelu Lukaku, who missed some big chances against Japan, has scored all of the goals he's going to score in the tournament. And yeah, I just feel like Belgium's luck has run out. So I see Brazil winning this 2-1. And next up, it's Croatia versus Russia, or should I say, the team I expected to be in this position versus the team that I thought had zero chance to make it thus far. I mean, did any of you have Russia beating Spain in the round of 16? If you say yes, I know you're lying. So here's what I'll say about this matchup, and I'll keep it simple. Russia should lose, because I don't think they're better than Croatia in any way. Not with any of their players, not with their tactics, nothing. But Russia are at home. And playing at home and feeding off the energy of the crowd does something to you, unless you're Brazil in the semifinals against Germany in 2014. Then playing at home did nothing for you besides make David Luiz cry real tears. Like big fat ones. The guy was sobbing. I think he's still crying. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked because all I want to say is, if you look back at any of the World Cup winners in history, each one of them definitely had one, but possibly 2 games where they survived a tough matchup by getting that little bit of luck necessary to propel them on to the next round, which after something like that happens, it would give any team, including all 8 of these teams left in this tournament, more belief that the impossible is possible. And I believe that Croatia had their one game of holy crap, how did we win that, against Denmark. They survived 120 minutes and penalties in a game that they easily could have lost, and I think this will wake them up and have them not take anything for granted against Russia, who I think should be satisfied for getting as far as they have, because I don't think they're winning this one. So I'm going to say 3-1 to Croatia. And then saving the best for last, it's England versus Sweden. And let's start with a few fun facts. 1, England has only beaten Sweden once in 8 competitive matches all time. How about that? A good place to start. 2, Sweden only had to suffer through a tough 90 minutes against Switzerland, but overall, it felt like it was devoid of any real emotion from them, like they weren't down and then had to miraculously come back like Belgium had to do against Japan. They battled like they always do, they got the lead, and they locked it down. Whereas with England, they battled like they always do too. I don't want to take that away from them, but they gave up a late goal, had to play an extra 30 minutes, and then had the high emotion of winning in penalties, something they've never done in the World Cup before. So I think Sweden comes into this more rested physically and mentally. 3, Sweden has only given up goals in 1 game all tournament, and they were both to Germany. One off of Marco Reus's knee, and the other off of Toni Kroos's magic free kick, while England hasn't kept a clean sheet yet this tournament. So in summation, I don't know how this one's gonna play out, and it's driving me crazy. On one hand, we have a battle-tested Sweden team that got second in a tough group in qualifying, then beat Italy over 2 legs to qualify for the World Cup, then won a tough group in the group stages before gamely earning a 1-0 win over the Swiss in the round of 16. And I think this mentality that they've created for themselves, which is minus any trace of superstars or ego, has served them incredibly well. On the other hand though, their number 9 up top, Marcus Berg, who notched 8 goals in 11 qualifying games, has yet to score. And he and the rest of his team didn't look all that threatening against the Swiss, so I don't really know where their goals are going to come from, minus some crazy deflection, which was the game winner in their last match. Either way though, I think this will be England's toughest opponent so far in the tournament. Well, unless James Rodriguez had played for Colombia, then I would have said Colombia. But anyway, as for England, of their 9 goals so far in this tournament, only one of them has been any good, if we're being honest, which was Jesse Lingard's incredible effort from outside the box against Panama, while the others were set pieces. There have been 4 of those, 3 penalties, and 1 deflection off of Harry Kane's heel, and he had no idea that it hit his heel until afterwards. So in some ways, it's still hard to know just how good this England team is. But no one can argue with the fact that they're getting it done and in a major tournament, and that's all that matters. Also, after finally winning their first penalty shootout in World Cup history, like I mentioned a little bit earlier and like you guys probably already knew, they have something magical going, as does their captain Harry Kane, who I think will continue to stretch his lead at the top of the Golden Boot race with another penalty as England beats Sweden 1-0. And all right, that is it. That is all I got. England, Croatia, France, and Brazil all advancing to the semifinals. So do you agree? or do you disagree? Let me know your thoughts down below. Like always, please smash that like and subscribe button if you haven't already, and enjoy the games tomorrow. I'll see you after. Later.